Hello there everybody and welcome back to a new video on the channel. I hope you are having a great day. So I actually posted this scenario on my Twitter while I was in DC. It was late at night at the hotel and I was just kind of bored, so I made it on a YapMS on my phone and I posted it. And it kind of blew up a little bit, especially for a small channel like myself. It got a few hundred likes, and bigger YouTubers such as Red Lion retweeted it, and there was a lot of discussion about it. So I figured I'd post it on my channel and talk about it, why I think this would happen, and like go into a little more detail. And that is, what if Donald Trump never switched parties and ran as 2016 as a Democrat and won the election? So this is pretty interesting scenario. Before we get into it, I'm going to talk about how I think their campaigns would be ran, their running mates. So I do think Ted Cruz would probably run on a similar platform to Mitt Romney, but maybe a bit more anti-establishment, just because Donald Trump's campaign, even as a Democrat, would be very anti-establishment. I think Ted Cruz would probably run a campaign sort of maybe pretty much just how he is. He'd say he was an outsider, but he was a classic conservative, a true conservative, and he was an outsider, so you should vote for him. But in similar things like that. But he'd be very more, traditionally conservative on things such as probably like gun rights. He'd probably use that against Trump. Economics, he'd probably be very conservative. So pretty much just your normal Republican. Well, Donald Trump would probably be similar to how he was in real life in terms of his tariffs, things like that against other countries, America first. And I don't think that would work as well as a Democrat, but I do think that he could pull a lot of that same stuff off. So yeah, with that, I think the running mates would probably be Ted Cruz, probably pick someone like a Jeb Bush or John Kasich, just because he would want to get some appeal in the Rust Belt in like Ohio and Florida, to critical swing states that Trump would probably be leading in for most of the election, just because Trump's Rust Belt appeal would be even greater, and Florida would, with Trump, would already probably be in his column, as we saw in 2016 and 2020. Um, well, Donald Trump, I'm not really sure who he would pick as his running mate. I'd say it'd probably be a 50-50 chance of either like a normal Democrat, maybe a slightly more populist Democrat, maybe like a Sherrod Brown. That would be an interesting pick. Someone like that. Or I feel like it'd be someone from his inner circle, like a Kellyanne Conway, someone like that, but they'd probably be more liberal if that were the case. So with that, we're going to fill in the safe states for both candidates. Ted Cruz's safe states include Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Alaska, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, all of Nebraska except the second district, um, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, and I believe that is it. Yes. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's safe states include the states of Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, Illinois, Minnesota, pretty much all these northeastern states. He'd run up the margins heavily in states like Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey. He would probably win there in places like that, even bigger than Obama did. Same with Minnesota. He would destroy in Minnesota. He'd probably win Minnesota by 15, 20 points. New York, Maine's first district, and Maine at large. So these are all the safe states for each candidate. Trump, as you can see, is pulling ahead easily. I think if Trump did run as a Democrat, he would actually do much better than he did if he was a Republican, just because Democrats already start off with quite the large electoral, not a large, but they already start with an electoral advantage in the Northeast with California. So Trump would actually outperform his Republican margins, and not Republican margins, his Republican totals in terms of electoral votes and probably the popular vote. Trump would probably easily win the popular vote. Ted Cruz's likely states include the states of Georgia, Arizona, Missouri, and probably, I'm debating between putting these as likely or lean. I'm gonna put Montana and the Dakotas as likely. Ted Cruz would probably win them, similar to McCain in the Dakotas, by about 8-9 points. While Montana, he'd probably win, but it would be very narrow. I think this is pretty much it, though, for Ted Cruz's likely states. Well, Donald Trump's likely states include Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Maine's second district, Iowa, and New Mexico. And these would be Trump's likely states, putting him at 253. Because I do think that Trump would way outperform in the Rust Belt. He would destroy in the Rust Belt. He'd probably win all these states by 8, 9 points. In New Mexico, it was still sort of a swing state, but Trump's Hispanic appeal would do the opposite. It would actually energize more Hispanics. Well, Ted Cruz would probably get some Hispanic vote too, so it kind of even out. So I think New Mexico would be likely. Um, Ted Cruz's lean states include Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana. These are all states that are usually Republican strongholds, but with Trump on the ballot with his very populist rhetoric, and especially as we saw it win over voters in Kentucky and West Virginia, he way outperformed all Republicans. He would just flip those voters Democrat. So while Ted Cruz would win them, I'd say it would probably be by 2000, 2004, 2008 margins, so pretty narrow. So it kind of actually revert back to early 2000s map in that part in Appalachia, because Trump would energize a lot of these voters. Donald Trump's lean states include the states of New Hampshire, Ohio, Virginia, Nevada, and Colorado. I do think Trump could have. I mean, Trump only lost Colorado and Virginia by lean margins, but when he was running as a Republican. But I do think he would win them, just because. I'm not really sure how to put it, but they were pretty big swing states. They were leaning Democrat though. And and they really only voted for Hillary and then Biden that much because Trump was such an outsider in his rhetoric. But I do think if Trump was a Democrat with the media probably more on his side, he would manage to win those states by about 1 or 2 points. Same with Nevada, he'd probably win it by about 2.4, pretty much the exact same result as any Democrat. This leads us to I forgot to put Ted. That's a tough call in Nebraska's second. I'll get back to this. That's it. I'll get back to that in a second. I think North Carolina will go to Ted Cruz by a tilt margin. It'd be a very close state. I do think, however, just the fact that Trump would run a slightly more socially liberal campaign would probably hurt him in there. So Cruz would probably win North Carolina by about half a point. But Trump would outperform with white working class voters in Appalachia and inner cities would probably actually turn out for him a lot more. So Cruz would probably very narrowly win it. Meanwhile, Donald Trump would win Florida by a tilt margin. Well, yes, Cruz would probably outperform with Hispanics a little bit. I mean, and we may never know, though. You may say that he would outperform with Hispanics in Miami-Dade, while Trump would actually probably outperform with the white working class in the Panhandle. So it'd be interesting. Florida would be a very interesting state to watch, but I do think in the end it would go to Donald Trump, just because if you look at Trump in Florida, it's just different. Like, honestly, Trump running in Florida and being on the ballot in Florida, it just messes up everything. It's so unpredictable. So that's why I do think Trump would win Florida, but probably very narrowly. Nebraska second, I do think actually will go to Donald Trump, probably by a lean margin, similar to Obama in 2008. I do think Trump would win it. Ted Cruz would do better than McCain, but I think Donald Trump would still win it by about a point. And so with that, we have the 2016 election. If Donald Trump ran as a Democrat, Donald Trump has 333 electoral votes to Ted Cruz's 205. This would be a very interesting scenario. I would personally, even though Trump wins by much solider margin, and he probably would also win a re-election in 2020, I would still probably prefer Trump run as a Republican, because a lot of his agenda, although I may be populist, I am still more conservative than I am a liberal on a lot of issues, and I think that if Trump ran as a Democrat, a lot of issues such as gay marriage, I don't know, tariffs, just a lot of social issues. Our country, well, yes, our country economically would probably be a lot better in terms of the Rust Belt. I do think socially we would be probably as far left as Europe by now if Trump did run as a Democrat. So with that, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.